Hello and welcome back to the American League Central Rundown. Uh, it's just Sam and Eric today. This is kind of a
Yeah,
special
this is
episode.
odd. Yeah, this is like that weird Scooby-Doo movie that came out a couple years ago that was just Daphne and Velma.
Oh, the worst version of Scooby Doo. Great. I think you
Yeah,
need to.
yeah,
This speaks real highly of us. Thanks, Sam.
yeah, exactly, exactly. No, I just hopping on to talk some Royals. I've had a very busy week. Been doing a lot of stuff, traveling out of town. So just wanted to hop on and do a quick little mini-sode to wrap up some Royals talk. And I know that you guys mentioned that Oren and I got into a fist fight.
Yeah, you've clearly won.
Um, yeah, well, it was really more of a Highlander situation.
Oh,
There can only be one.
mhm.
So that's a little bit more in line with what was going on there. Um,
So you're saying the
but
next time we see Orin, it's just going to be a severed head floating on a screen?
That I think so. I think so. Yeah. And then there will be a weird follow-up that's kind of about like the ozone and environmentalism. So, have you ever seen Highlander 2?
Oh, it's been a hot minute.
Okay. My parents they love the movie Highlander, but they say that Highlander 2 is the only movie they've ever walked out of. So,
Oh well.
yeah.
I mean,
But,
I remember because for those who haven't, it was like a like early '90s like action film where I don't
mhm.
know, like this person was immortal except for if you chopped off their head. So
Yeah.
I was a wee boy when that movie came out, and I'm pretty sure I got in trouble with several decapitated dolls. But that's fine. I felt
Yeah.
cool. Nothing
Yeah.
psychotic
But
about that.
anyway, in all seriousness, though, we are five adults, and it is difficult to coordinate the schedules of five adults. So, absences are going to, I'm sure, happen as we move forward into doing this, especially because we're just doing this for funsies.
It's true.
Um, so anyway, but Oren, I gotta say, is really letting the team down because he missed the episode after a ball fell on a man's head, and now he's missing the chat after a White Sox fan is elected Pope.
It's the worst possible news. Like this.
So I mean, yeah, yeah, but it's better than the Cardinal because a lot of people were saying that there was a Cardinal from St. Louis who was
Who was in consideration? I
in
did not know.
consideration. So, or not in consideration, but was, a name that people were throwing around. So, at least we don't have a St. Louis Cardinals fan as the Pope. But
Right. I did like it was just adorable how Chicago fought over the Pope for about 3 hours after he was elected. And the Cubs seemed to think that if you just tell the world first that he's a Cubs fan, then he can't take that back. And they
y-
were wrong.
yeah, well, of all indications show that the Pope knows ball. So I'm very interested to see how well the Pope knows ball. But let's see, Pope, Leo, you want to hit us up?
It's
Let's
an
let's
open
do it. Let's
invitation.
make something happen. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so but obviously the Royals White Sox was the only American League Central series going on this past week, and we can discuss that a little bit. A all in all exact result that the Royals wanted and expected to win 4 out of 4 against the White Sox. Some of those games were a little bit close, in my opinion. Um, especially the fact that you needed the White Sox to just completely melt down in the
Hmm.
bottom of the ninth inning of the game on Wednesday, was it? Or no, Tuesday. Guy ball hits off the top of a guy's head. Guy just biffs a double play ball up the middle. You
Hmm.
know, it was pretty. It was it was it was a losing teams make plays like that, and winning teams make their opponent pay for
Hmm.
plays like that. So I think that's a pretty decent encapsulation of what the Royals were doing. And then, of course, they went on to win 10-0 on Thursday. So
It always
you
helps.
you just you're right there on the ropes for 3 games, and then you just blow them out in the last game. So that was good to see, and it was good to see. It was good to see the bats catch fire, similar to what happened on Sunday when the Royals set a franchise record with 7 home runs in a game for a team who had the fewest number of home runs in the major leagues prior to that.
Mm.
And it was also Star Wars Day, and it was 10 solo home runs between the two teams, the Orioles and the Royals. They had 10 solo home runs
Such
on Star Wars Day.
such a nerd. Just
Yeah, yeah.
why do
They
I feel
crossed.
like Reddit posted about that for the next 5 days after?
Yeah, yeah. They went around home plate and they had like an imperial officer who was at a computer. They're like, "Oh, so you're by yourself. So it's a solo home run." If you understand that reference to a Star Wars movie that most people did not see.
I was about to say, I
Um,
think that's a deep cut.
have you seen the Solo movie?
I watched it with my nephew, and I'll be honest, I didn't pay much attention.
Yeah, that's how he gets his name, Han Solo, by the way, is that
Mm.
an Imperial officer just sees that he's by himself and he goes, Han Solo. But anyway, enough about bad Star Wars. Um, Lee
And
told us
talk
to make
about
a
the good
Lord.
Royals. There's your
Yeah,
segue.
Lee told us to make a Lord of the Flies reference, by the way. So that one's for Lee that I'm mentioning that. But I don't know why. I don't know what Lord of the Flies reference she wants us to make.
Who's referencing Lord of the Flies? Read that book in fifth grade because everyone forced us to do it. Who Lord of the
Yeah,
Flies?
I read that book in my 10th grade English class, and I
Yeah,
was just like, okay, they're on an island and they survivor, but what?
isn't
So
it just the
anyway,
Hunger Games, but not like
it's
as
just
grandiose?
it's just the Hunger Games. It's just unstructured survivor is all it is. So, but with little kids. So anyway, the Royals are red hot right now, and I can tell you that they have won 14, or they've gone 14-2 in their last 16 games. And if you, like I said a couple weeks ago, they had the road trip where they went 2-8, and they lost six in a row in the midst of that road trip. And I said that the next 16 games will tell me a lot more about the Royals than the previous 10 games did. And they went 14-2 in those 16 games. And if you count that last game that they won against the Tigers on that road trip, they're 15-2 in their last 17 games. So it's a team that has shown its ability to bounce back. And look, you're granted you're playing against the Rockies, who are awful, the Astros, who are mediocre,
Right.
the Rays, who are probably a little bit worse than mediocre, the Orioles, who are having like the most disappointing season
Looked
of.
horrible. The Twins just got done playing them. They look bad.
They look awful. They look terrible. And I don't know what happened with that team. If losing to the Royals in the wild card round just messed them up that much last year, but they look awful.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think they have some pitching like injuries because like they let Corbin Burns go and replaced him with Kyle Gibson. And I mean, Kyle Gibson is a pitcher in 2025, but he shouldn't
I
be the
had
signing.
no idea that Kyle Gibson was still around.
Yeah,
I
he's their
saw
fifth
his
starter, I think.
I saw his name on the thing going into that game he pitched against the Royals, and I was just like, is that the same Kyle Gibson?
It is.
And yeah, crazy.
He should
He's
not
like
be in rotation
37.
in 20. And then like
Yeah.
also like Charlie Morton is has absolutely fallen off. And
Hmm.
then they like the guy the Twins faced yesterday was Kramer and he was fine, but like yeah, their pitching has been not great and the hitters just haven't
Yeah.
hit. But anyway, that's enough about them.
Yeah. Very, very disappointing. And then of course the Royals played the White Sox.
Yeah.
So, those are teams you need to beat. and those are teams that you need to play well against. And they did.
Mhm.
And they are, the offense is coming around. They scored 10 runs yesterday. They had that 7 home run game.
Mhm.
They have really some of the guys who are really struggling. Vinny's come on, Salvy's come on, um, Bobby Witt Jr.'s hot as ever.
Yeah, he is.
Michael Garcia has continued his hot start, unlike he did last year. Um, and so they've got some players who are really off to a strong start. I think the biggest thing is you again Hunter Renfro, Michael Massey are just not doing it.
So
And if this is a team that's going to compete, you got to do something about that.
can I ask you, because on the episode where it was the one just before this one, we talked specifically about the outfield alignments,
Hmm.
and my original idea was I saw Cleveland's, and I'll just show it here, and then we'll talk Kansas City. I saw Cleveland's outfield and thought, well, it's Stephen Kwan and absolutely no one. This has to be
Hmm.
the worst outfield alignment in the division. No, turns out Hunter Renfro by himself is just as bad as the rest of the
Yeah,
Cleveland offense, and then it's been
yeah.
Kyle Isbell, who's the only like plus.
Hmm.
So why is Hunter Renfro still playing? MJ Melendez is done. Why Hunter?
He's getting paid $8.5 million. That's why Hunter Renfro is still there. He's getting paid $8.5 million. So if they don't want to eat that, they're going to keep him on the team. Now, I think eventually they are going to eat that, and they're just going to DFA him. But Drew Waters, going back to that slide you just had, Drew Waters, he's playing some ball. I
He
mean,
is.
he's been there for 23 games. He has a positive wins above replacement. He has, really been hitting well, and he was a guy who was a high prospect, came in with a lot of hype, a lot of potential, a guy that the Royals traded for, and he's been playing. He's been playing well. And even someone like Mark Canna, who's not up on the screen right now, he's a veteran. He's had good at bats for the Royals. He's been
Mhm.
able to, be clutch and, you know, be a good player when called upon. Now, I don't think probably you don't want to have your plan B that Mark Canna plays every day. But look, you spent all this time in the off season trying to get Jonathan India to play the outfield, and you got Kyle Isbell, who's hitting okay, and he's a good defensive outfielder.
Mhm.
You've got Drew Waters, who's playing ball. Why are we screwing around with Hunter Renfro
Right.
for any reason other than the amount of money he's making? And when you don't have him on your team, his wins above replacement is zero.
Yeah.
When you do have him on your team, his wins above replacement is negative. So that kind of seems like a little bit of a,
How
that
does it
kind of
feel?
seems like a little bit of a contradiction to me.
Both of us sitting here have a higher war for the Kansas City Royals than than Hunter
Ex-
Renfro.
exactly, exactly. So I think we're coming up on the 40 game mark. I think
Yep.
tonight actually is the 40th game. And when you're a quarter of the way through the season, you kind of it's the whole argument of it's early kind of is not as,
Yep.
not as much of a thing. So, and I hate to make this podcast just about the players that I don't like because I don't want to be like Stephen A. Smith coming on here and being like, this man needs to
Listen,
be got,
if you
pounding the
bring up
table.
LeBron, I swear to God.
Look, Bronny James has no place in the NBA, Eric. No.
Okay.
Um, um,
I
but
think he's
yeah,
the
I just think when you look at these guys, I think you're getting production out of the guys you need to get production from, and they're playing good ball. It's just if you really want to be the competitive team and compete for the playoffs, then you need to be more serious about the guys that uh, you know. And if this were a team that was going to lose 100 games, who cares?
Right.
You know. But for a team that's trying to compete, you can't have guys like that. So
Well,
that would be my biggest thing right now.
well, my
But
God, I did bring this up. This is obviously incredibly too early to look at like anything but the wild card, but right now the Royals are holding the second wild card spot. They're 2.5 games
mhm,
up.
yeah,
The wild card is probably going to be what, an 85, 86 win team.
yeah, which is what they were last year.
Yeah. So I mean, anyone who hurts that, and you already have a player in the outfield who is already one game making you one game less, that can be huge by the end. Because it
Yeah.
also doesn't look
And
like Detroit is slowing up at all.
yeah. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on Royals outfield prospects. But I have to imagine that they can call up someone who would, at least, have the excuse of they're a young player. Hunter Renfroe is 33 years old.
Right.
So, um, yeah, I think, and hey, Jack Caglione is making starts in right field at Northwest Arkansas. So he's a big man in the outfield.
Yeah.
Guy that big playing the outfield, you don't see all the time. But anyway, yeah, so I feel pretty good about where the Royals are at, obviously. But now they've got a series against the Red Sox, who, pretty decent team, contending team. Series against the Astros, who you just won 2 out of 3 against. They're right there in the wild card standing as well. That's another team who you need to have the tiebreaker over.
Mhm.
So you got 3 against the Astros. You got 3 against the Cardinals for rivalry weekend,
Yep.
which is next weekend in MLB,
Hmm.
which we can get into a little bit more next time we talk. And then you play against 3 games against the Giants.
Hmm.
So as much as the previous 16 games were against teams who aren't doing so hot, you got a pretty decent test coming up
Yep.
in the next 12 games. So we'll see how they do. We'll see what how they respond to those teams. But for right now, they have righted the ship, and I am not going to get too ahead of myself, but I think that if they want to compete for the playoffs, they're doing the right things. They just need to make some tough decisions, and eat
Right.
some money. But we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, there are three teams in the Central that are above 20 games. So, and basically, they have like three of the top records in the American League.
Hmm.
Detroit has 25 wins, Cleveland 22, and then Kansas City has 23, only in third place by percentage points. So, and then the
Yeah,
Twins have had not as good of a run, but they needed to do what they needed to do. They're climbing out of their hole. They're still not out of it, but they're 2 games under 500, which is a lot better than the nine,
yeah.
like the 8 games they were. So,
And
it's my
I would imagine. I don't think. I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't hold, because there were 3 playoff teams from the Central last year. I would be pretty surprised if that happens again, and it wouldn't shock me if one of these teams, the Tigers, the Royals, more the Royals or the Guardians, kind of fell off as the season
right.
goes on. I think the Tigers are probably gonna, you know, I think the Tigers are the best team in the division, most likely. But we'll see. For the Royals to make the playoffs, is that's they went 29 years without making the playoffs.
Right.
So I'm not gonna say there's something wrong with that, but I would like to see them compete for the division.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. That's my Royals update. And yeah. Any Twins thoughts that you've developed over the last two
Over
days?
2 years. Well, they just swept Baltimore, which sounds a lot more impressive at the start of the season than it does now. But
Yeah.
they're 18-20, and I will take it.
Hmm.
Royce Lewis came back. It seems like they have a healthy team. we talked about a lot of this on Wednesday, so I don't want to rehash a lot of it.
I just knocked on wood for you.
Hey, thanks. We need it because
Yeah.
I mean, there's a thing called a healthy Byron Buxton, which we have not seen in a while, and he is so fun to watch right now. He's kind of carrying the team on his back. Also, Harrison Bader is like all star level. It's weird,
Yeah. How
but I
about
kind of like
that?
it. Yeah, they're. I mean, it's not going to pick up. He had a pinch hit home run that ended up basically breaking a game open against Baltimore, and they're about to play San Francisco tonight, so they're kind of at the same level the Royals are at. They have kind of a tough series of games that are coming up. Yeah, they except for they have Giants and Baltimore the next two games, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm starting to get excited about him, but I all I can say is I'm confident that they're not like they could just be a mediocre team is how I can view them. Where 2 weeks ago I viewed like this might be a bottom five team in the league. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Carlos Correa hasn't hit, which is really worrying because there's still 3 years left on that contract. So maybe that's not going to look great. But
Yeah. Well, and I think they're having, like I said, last year and this year are almost like a mirror image of each
yes,
other so far. Because last year they started out terrible, went on a win streak, got themselves into position, and then
yep,
just fell apart.
yeah. Let's
So
hope
I
that
mean,
last part doesn't happen.
I know I we'll see, but it just feels so similar to what happened last year
Yeah.
with the Twins. So
And like that's what's
um,
going to be frustrating if they continue to play well. That's fine. If you win, I'll forget about the bad start. It'll end up being like a plus. But like boy, does it suck having to like continue to fight in the first month. Where if you would just
mhm,
stay 500, now the end of these, if we're up to the 40 games, they're 2 games under 500. So now you're just at you can look at individual games and go, okay, they should have won that and they should have won that. 2 weeks ago, they had to play nearly flawless baseball just to be considered a mediocre team. Which what happens if you're just a mediocre team? Like, why do you have to be such an extreme team all the time?
yeah, I don't know. It's a weird game we play.
It
So
really is.
well, I say we. It's a weird game we talk about. We don't play it.
No,
We're
people
idiots who we're idiots who do a podcast. So
right. I just wanted to show Kansas City's roster just to see if there was anything that but you talked about Michael Massey is definitely struggling. Bobby Witt is freaking brilliant
yeah,
right now.
yeah, no, for sure. Michael Massey, who had a decent year last year, who only played 100 games, had some injury issues, but Michael Massey's just off to a horrible start. Now he has some options and he's pre-arbitration too.
Yep.
Um, so he could be sent down, which I think would probably be the right move at this point. I don't want to completely move on from him because I think he does
Right.
have some talent. Um, Freddie Fermin has been hitting better recently. Uh, Jonathan India has been also he was pretty cold for a while there. He's been coming on. So a lot of these guys, I think are looking better and doing a lot better.
What's going on
And
with
I
Salvi?
think Salvi, he's old.
Yeah, that's what I was
You know,
hoping you weren't gonna say.
he's old. He's had some little nagging injuries, and he's actually been doing better. These past couple weeks, he's been hitting a lot of doubles the
Okay.
past few games. So I think I think he needs to be kind of taken off full time catching
Right.
duty. I
Is that
think
what the split is? I saw he's played 36 games, and at 35 years old, like that's quite a bit. I see he is playing catcher, but what's the split?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that at least the last few games he's been playing um he's been playing first base and DH a little bit more. I can tell you that this year he has played, as I look it up, this year he's played 18 games at catcher, 10 games at DH, 9 games at first base. So I would say with Freddie Fermin looking a little bit better, and being a little bit, you know, being a little bit more solid these past couple weeks, I would say we probably need to have Freddie be the
Hmm.
primary catcher and have Salvi be the relief catcher. As much as I hate to say that, I think yeah.
Yeah, this is not what I expect. I just pulled up his Savant and wasn't expecting that.
No,
Expected batting.
he's been hitting the ball well, which I think a lot of players on the Royals have been.
Yep.
He's been hitting the ball well, and he's really been hitting a lot of doubles recently,
Hmm.
a lot of balls off the wall. So I think the home runs will come, and I think that that negative point 0.3 WAR he
Yeah.
will improve upon, and that will, you know, I think as the season goes on, his numbers will be more similar to what we've seen in the past. Um, but I think the Salvador Perez who hit 48 home runs in 2021 probably is gone.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he's still I think he's still got gas in the tank, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends the year with
Mhm.
25 home runs and 80 some RBI and a respectable batting average. So I think he's just off to a slow start, like a lot of the guys are.
Oh, that's fair. I
But
so this I'll put you on the spot here, but we talked about Jose Ramirez because he got 250 home runs and 250 stolen bases. So he's like one of 7 players to do that with one team, and all of them are Hall of Famers. Catchers are severely underrepresented in the Hall of Fame, but so Salvador Perez, what do you think his chances are?
I'm going to say I think Salvi has a good chance of being a Hall of Famer, and I think there are two things that are majorly working in his favor. I think one is the World Series MVP,
Yep.
uh, which I think will be seen as a pretty decent accomplishment, and I think the other one is the Clemente Award.
Yep.
I think between the Clemente Award and the World Series MVP, those are the things that are doing the heaviest lifting. And I think, look, 9-time All Star, 5-time Gold Glove, 5-time Silver Slugger. I think those are all things that will, make you a Hall of Fame candidate. But I think that his who he is
Yeah.
and what he has meant for the game, like with the Clemente Award, I
Hmm.
think that'll do a lot more heavy lifting
Yeah.
than necessarily the numbers will. And, in all seriousness, if he plays, he's 34. And if he wants to be the full time DH
Hmm.
for another handful of years, very likely going to be the Royals' all time leader in home runs.
Yeah. He's at
So
two. He has 275 now. I'm not sure what I'm assuming it's George Brett.
George Brett has like 315. It's not much.
Okay. How
So
many years does he have in the
Salvi
contract?
on his contract, I'm not sure. Not sure what his contract situation is,
Yeah,
but
we'll look at that in a second. I guess it doesn't really matter, but like, yeah, that extension he signed in what 2020, 2021.
I would have a hard time seeing Salvi leaving,
Right.
especially with Bobby Witt Jr. on the team and locked up for a while, and especially being on a team that is probably going to be trying to compete for the next several years. I would be surprised if he left. And apparently in 2023, he was ready to go to the Rangers in a deadline trade.
Really?
This was reported that Salvi was agreed to a trade in 2023 to go to the Rangers,
Hmm.
but for one reason or another, it didn't end up happening. Um, so I
Right.
think with the team being as bad as it was at that time, I would understand that, but I would have a hard time. I think
Right.
things have changed a lot in the last 2 years, and I would have a hard time believing that he would leave. But
Uh, he has a team option at the end of this year for 13 mil, which they will probably pick up. I would think,
they'll
unless he
they'll
retires.
pay it. They'll pay it, and I
Yeah.
don't think he's going to retire. Um, that's yeah.
Right. And it's all speculation. I just kind of because like you have to view catchers differently, I think, at this point, because no catcher is catching 150 games anymore. Like they're all
No.
around 120. It's like Salvi was actually one of the last like stalwarts that were
Yeah.
catching over 120 for a minute until
Hmm.
the catcher of the future, MJ Melendez, came up.
Yeah.
But yeah, even last year, I mean, the old man played 158 games.
Hmm.
Some of
Yeah.
that's DH, a lot of that DH second base, or it's not second base. That would be a sight, though.
I'd like to see that.
Would you? I don't think you would.
I mean, once maybe.
That's it.
Uh,
It'd
yeah,
be one of
but
those
no.
like gimmick games where they play him at a different position every inning.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, no. Salvi, whatever he does with his future, that number 13 is going to be retired at
Yeah,
some point. I think that and
no,
that
that's
and probably Alex Gordon's number at some point, he'll be one of the Royals greats,
yeah,
either no matter what happens. So,
yeah,
but anyway, so
yeah.
how about we dive into some remember this content?
Yes. Okay. So tell me, I've already told the twins one. I do have a sneak one. I'm not going to show it, but go ahead and tell. What is your remember one? Set us up.
All right, so I have two that I'll go through here for a minute, and so I had this idea for remember that time dot dot dot, which is basically an odd thing, a weird situation that you remember that someone, if you told someone about it, they'd go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I forgot about that." So my first one would be in 2013, George Brett was the Royals hitting coach. Yeah.
I don't
So
remember.
in 2013, the Royals were in the midst of a horrendous slump, and they had won. I think it was like 1 out of 11 games. They were in the midst of like 1-11, and they had just lost to the St. Louis Cardinals. And George Brett called up the general manager, Dayton Moore, and he basically said, "I can't watch this anymore, and I want to be the hitting coach." So George Brett, this was May, as I'm looking at the article, this was May 30th. He took over as the Royals hitting coach. That day, the Royals ended up winning against the Cardinals 4-2, and then went on a little bit of a run before the All Star break. And then after the All Star break on July 25th, George Brett stepped down as the Royals hitting coach. So he was in there for about a little less than 2 months as the Royals hitting coach.
Mhm.
And I think the reason he did this was because the Royals had so many young players at that time. Eric Hosmer, uh, Mike Moustakas, Salvador Perez, Lorenzo Cain, all these guys who were really struggling because this was like their second and third years for a
Mhm.
lot of them, who were really struggling. And he, I think, instilled a lot of confidence in them, and I think kind of showed them how to be major leaguers.
Sure.
Um, I don't know how much work he was doing in the batting cages with them. I don't know how much work he was doing with, telling them, their swing planes, but I think he was just trying to tell them to, you know, carry themselves differently.
If he
The
was
reason
telling them
why,
you can put exactly up to this much for pine tar on the bat, and then
yes,
not an inch
yes,
more.
yes, exactly, exactly. He says, I'm not going to go there. Um, anyway, but he and when he was the Royals hitting coach, they played a lot better and they went on a run. And 2013 was significant because they ended that year with a winning record. They were 86-76 that year. And it was the first time they had a winning record in 10 years. So he instilled some confidence in them and showed them, hey, you're here for a reason, I guess. But the other part of this that was significant is that during his tenure as the Royals hitting coach, the I don't remember exactly what his title was, but he was called like the video and analysis director or something
Okay.
like that, was Pedro Grifol, who
Oh,
eventually went on to become the White Sox manager last year and got was he fired last year, Pedro
yep,
Grifol? Yeah,
yep.
he was
He
fired
was.
last year. And after George Brett stepped down as the hitting coach, Pedro Grifol became the hitting coach. So this was the beginning of Pedro Grifol as an MLB coach.
As a
And
White
eventually,
Sox hater, as a white
as a
professional White Sox hater, thank you for giving him the rise. I appreciate it.
exactly. So this situation precipitated a lot of different AL Central uh, type stuff. Um, so yeah, George Brett was the Royals hitting coach for, and the amount of hype that went along with this was just like when this was announced, this was like, you know,
Hmm.
have you heard of Jesus? Well, this is like 10 times that, was the way it was being treated. And there were always like, there were like stories on the local news where it was like, oh, George Brett, he's going to be wearing the number 5 for the Royals again. Come out to the K and blah, blah, blah. So
Right.
anyway, but yeah, so that was an interesting remember this because George Brett basically came down from his role as the vice president and hung around the guys and probably just shot the shit and you know did whatever with them for
Say
about 2 months.
had a suitcase of Miller Lite every in the dugout with him, and
Yeah, shot the breeze for like 2 months and then pieced out back to the owner's box, so or the vice president's box.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was George Brett as the Royals hitting coach, which probably not a lot of people remember, but there you go. And then my second one is one of the strangest MLB highlights that I've ever seen. And I don't know if you've previewed this, but this is a game in 2009 where the Cleveland Indians are playing the Kansas City Royals. And in the bottom of the ninth inning,
Oh
there's a
yeah.
line drive up the middle that hits a seagull and allows the Indians to score the walk-off game-winning run because there were some seagulls on the field. The ball was hit. The seagulls kind of flew up, and the ball hit one of the seagulls, and that allowed the runner from second to score without a throw. So we can see a little bit of a close-up
Oh,
here. This was Shin-Soo Choo,
yep.
another name from the past.
Oh, that's terrible.
And
That
right
would
off the
suck.
Seagull.
He had no.
Right
Who's
off.
the outfielder?
That was Coco Crisp as the
Oh, that's
outfielder.
right.
So not known as being, the best defensive or the not known as having the strongest arm,
Yep.
but on this play, he certainly would have had a chance at home plate
Yes.
had it not had it not hit the Seagull. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
that
that
was
sucks.
uh, that was an interesting remember this. But also this is happened on first and second with nobody out in
Mhm.
the bottom of the ninth. So even if there had been an out at home plate, the Royals are probably losing that game anyway. Um, but that was my second remember this is remember when the Royals lost a game because there was a seagull on the field.
Field. I have. I want to cheat because I love this clip. So yes, I'm double dipping and sharing a twins moment. But does anyone remember when Tory Hunter got hit and then took his revenge in a second? Tory did not like getting hit by the ball, so he gets drilled. I forget by his name. Sees the ball and whips the ball right back up at the pitcher, which I'm pretty sure he got ejected. And I
Yeah,
don't.
I would surmise the same.
I just, oh, I forgot. I saw that the other day, and I just couldn't. He's my favorite twin of all time. I love that he took his own revenge.
Now let me ask you this: is that better or worse than when Trevor Bauer threw the ball over center field in Kauffman Stadium?
I would say, I mean, Hunter throwing the ball at the pitcher is probably worse. I think the
I would.
better comparison might be Roger Clemens throwing the bat back at Piazza.
Oh yeah. That's a better call. That's a better call. Yeah,
But the Bauer thing, what the thing that really makes that funny to me is you can see Terry Francona like very like I don't read lips like John Boy, but everyone can just the what the F is wrong with you as he's like walking
yeah,
away.
yeah. Because like as someone who thinks thinks he knows human nature somewhat well, like picking up the ball and throwing it back at the pitcher
Yep.
seems like a somewhat logical,
Hmm.
step.
Yep.
Whereas just taking the ball and chucking it into the outfield, just like why?
And like
What?
and
What?
like I'd like to know the fan that took that ball away. I feel like that would just be like a hidden treasure.
I don't know. I don't think that ball made it to a fan
Oh,
because
really?
I think he threw it straight over center field, and there's just like a little it's like a little gravel area, and then there's like a concourse. There's like two walls. There's like a first wall, and then there's a space, and then there's a second wall, and there's like a little like premium area behind there. Um yeah, I don't think there were we'll have to
I
I'm
thought
just
the
going to look
story
up.
was he threw it over the batter's eye, but maybe that's just exaggerating because that's the general direction he threw it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it made it over the batter's eye. Um,
It
yeah,
was a hell of a throw if it was.
if he did, that's a heck of a throw.
But all right. Um, I don't have anything else for memory lane. So Sam, do you have anything else for the betterment?
I do not, but I'm just gonna look at this replay and see if this ball made it over the batter's eye, and can't tell because the camera work is shitty. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
For some
but
reason, the ball wasn't the story. Then I don't understand why.
hmm So anyway, by the way, do you think Trevor Bauer should come back into? Oh no, we're out of time. Sorry
Oh
guys, we
yes.
gotta.
Ooh,
Oh,
sorry. I'm
we
gonna have
gotta.
to pick that him up at next time. Yeah.
Oh gosh,
That's,
I gotta go. I gotta go do something else.
that's a
So,
close one. Anyway,
yeah. Well, okay.
thank you guys for listening. Talk to you later.